Hi everybody, welcome back to another reading wrap up with me. This month was very exciting. I honestly really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. In that regard, it was really rewarding. Let's see. Here are the three physical books that I either completely read or attempted to read in this month. And then I read 2 books on my Kindle. So let's dive in. The first book that I technically finished in August is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This is the second in the Crowns of Nyaxa series. The first one is the more, I think, famous one that's all over TikTok, and it's The Serpent and the Wings of the Night, so it's the second in the series. I'm so sad it's over, you guys. Like, the romance in that adventure was just everything to me. I will say, going from the pacing of the first book to the second, it took me a long time to get into it, just because the perspective of the first game was very divergent, like fast, and then the second book was more, she was mourning the change of her life. She, hated her mans, and then so she had to grow through that and like figure out what was best for her, and a lot of it was slower, but I would say getting through like the arch of the ending, I thought it was pretty great. I will say the resolution at the end of the book felt a little too simple. Like, literally the whole world was ending, gods were literally coming down from the sky, and then she passes out and she wakes up and everything was magically fixed. I don't know if I like that. Like, give me more. The author like really built a beautiful world, and I felt like she could have given us a little bit more, but in terms of reading, I think I gave it a 5-star rating. Yeah. 5-star rating. Once I finished reading this, I figured out that there's a novella that I missed. What the heck? So catch me reading that next month, because I'm not ready to say goodbye to this. And the author has released that she's gonna do 4 more books in the series, but from different character point of views. Why do people do that? Like, I'm so attached, but who knows? Maybe it'll be a good change of perspective going forward, because I do love her writing. A lot of it was so lyrical. I felt like I was highlighting so much on my Kindle, and it was honestly awesome. The next book that I read, because I felt like July was a fun reading month for me, but I felt like I needed to kind of mentally challenge myself. It's called Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Suskind. And this story, wow, I'm just gonna say this right now. It was definitely creepy and was unlike anything I've ever experienced, but because of that, I just know that it is going to stay in my brain forever. The premise is that there's this orphan that comes into this world in a very violent way. His mom just kind of tries to like leave him on the street because she thought that he was dead because he was so quiet. And he gets put into this orphanage, and his whole life he just has this big nose. He's just constantly sniffing things, and he has this crazy sense of smell. He says that like when he takes in a breath of air, he can like pull apart like all the different scents, like whether that be like onions being cut in the kitchen, the woods that line the floor. He can like not only decipher like what kind of woods, but like where they are placed in the house. Like, it's crazy. And honestly, the novel really pushed me to think about how grateful I am for a sense of smell. It really does open up a whole world. When I had COVID, I did lose my sense of smell for like probably close to 6 months, and having it slowly come back really made me realize how much it enhances my life, and this book just kind of forced me to be reminded of how grateful having the sense of smell is like such a powerful thing in our lives. But the story's pretty crazy. It's definitely a timepiece. 18th century France is when this book takes place, which is super fun. I love historical fiction. And so, the story kind of follows him through the orphanage, and then he goes to work at this like metal working, tanning, like leather tanning place. And like, there's just so many times where he's supposed to die, but he's just like so resilient. Everyone gets creeped out by him. No one wants to be around him, but they know that he is super talented. And I guess one way or another, when he's working for the tanning place with like the leather, there's a perfumesman in Paris that needs leathers for something that he got commissioned to make. And so he delivers the leathers, and he like literally begs the guy, like, please let me work with you. And he's like, I know you've been trying to make your competitor's perfume. Let me do it. I can do it in like 5 seconds. And the guy, and the perfumist or perfumer, excuse me, has been like literally struggling with making this perfume all day. So he's like, there's no way this ratty little kid is gonna come in here and do it. And sure enough, he does. And so he becomes a huge apprentice with one of the best perfumists in Paris. And then he decides to go off on his own pilgrimage. He ends up living in a cave for a while because humanity is just too much for him, and he like wants to like retire into like literally nothingness. Like he has these like really vivid dreams where he has like all these rooms with all the smells he's ever experienced in his life, and then he kind of wakes up out of this literal, like I think it was like an 8-month hibernation, and he's just on this mission to make the best perfume ever existing in the world. And so he goes to this village that's really famous for perfumery and that kind of world. He finds a scent that is unlike anything, is like earth-shattering to him, and he like walks through the whole town and finds it, and it comes from a 15-year-old girl. But he knows that he needs to make this perfume, like it's his life mission. And there are just so many twists and turns in this book. Hopefully that didn't give away too much about the story. There really is so much to it. The writing is very beautiful. It's definitely creepy. It's definitely spooky vibes, especially towards the end. It gets a little grotesque, I'm not gonna lie. So trigger warnings galore for that one. This is why I like going back to classic lit sometimes, because this adventure that I experienced is unlike anything I would have ever naturally come across with, obviously, my addiction to fantasy and romance. So, you know. So I give that 5 stars. And honestly, I think it might be more of a 6-star book for me, just in terms of how original it was and how much it really got my brain thinking about things and life, and it just made me feel things, you know? But you do not like him. You do not like him. You are not rooting for him while you're reading this book. So if you do like a villain perspective, this might be a good book for you. The next book that I read was Crown of Midnight. And if you guys want to see a lot of my live reactions, please watch my 24-hour readathon. I decided to give the Throne of Glass series another try. With how much I loved Crescent City and knowing that there is a 3rd book coming in January, I just want to be prepared for anything. Any and every kind of scenario, I want to be freaking ready, all right? So I read this pretty quick. I really loved it. I don't really know what to say. Like, I feel like series are kind of hard to talk about because, you know, the deeper you get into the series, the more secrets you kind of have to divulge in order to discuss it. In terms of pacing, I loved this much more than Throne of Glass. I feel like the romance was more genuine and it felt more deep in this book for whatever reason. The adventures in this as well were also just greatly appreciated compared to the first book. I don't know why Throne of Glass was so slow for me, but I really enjoyed this. All right, so this was good. I think I gave it 4 stars just because the pacing was a little bit, I gave it 4 stars. The ending of this was freaking nuts. So that is why when I picked up this next, Assassin's Blade, the 3rd, or the 1st, depending on how you want to read the series, I was just so let down. This is a collection of little stories about Selena. The first one was good, and then since then I have just been struggling to get through it. Like, the fact that I've had like maybe 150 pages left for like almost 2.5 weeks has been driving me crazy. I'm hoping to make some leeway on this today because honestly I just want it done. Like, the 4th one is staring at me back here and I'm just ready to dive right back into where this left off, because doing this little backpedaling historical background, I'm just kind of I'm oves and I'm struggling to find the importance. And my reader bestie Angelica told me that I really need to pay attention, but I don't care. I'm just ready. I'm ready. So that being said, in order to keep going with my readathon, I picked up Annihilation. This was recommended to me by Kari Can Read. She did like a fall horror book reading recommendation, and I have never really read horror. Well, Bunny kind of is. Sort of. The Perfume book that I just talked about also had a really spooky, creepy feeling to it. And you guys already know that I am full swing in fall over here. Me and my roommate literally already decorated our apartment a few weeks ago. So I just figured that giving this a try would be interesting, a good change of pace. And so the premise of this story, there is a woman whose husband goes on a science expedition to Area X, and no one has ever returned until him. And when he comes back home, he's like acting super weird. His memories are all out of whack. He can't even remember how he got home. He can't really tell her much about Area X itself. and all of a sudden 4 massive like Escalade vehicles show up, and they just, the group that sent him into Area X just kind of takes him and announces that he has cancer and that he essentially like died the next day. She felt like she had nothing else to live for since she lost her husband, so she volunteered to go on the next expedition into Area X. Oh my god. I'm like literally getting chills just thinking about it. Was it really scary? No. But did I have a hard time reading it at night? Yes. I would say that this was more of a thriller than horror. If you do not like being outside at nighttime, I would not recommend this. This is definitely like the jungle camping. Well, it's an expedition kind of vibe. So like forest, I guess more of a forest vibe. It's just living, and there's just, she's walking around. She just feels like something's watching her and something is following them around. And there definitely is. So it was very good. The imagery in this book was very lovely. It once again just kind of hyper fixated on the beautiful parts of nature that are often, I don't know, I'm a city girl. So for me to be reminded about nature is sometimes nice, especially because the main character in this book, she's an ecologist. So she just kind of has an eye for like how beautiful the plants are and how beautiful the terrain is and how animals should act. And then when she goes to this area, they are not acting how they should, and how the ecosystems are just acting off. And she's brave too. So like there's many scenarios where like they find this tower that goes into the ground, and the other 3 women on the expedition are like, no, I'm not going down there. And she's like, we have to, it's our duty. And then they go down there and spooky things start happening. Like I would never, like whenever she would make the rash decisions to bring the group into these really spooky scenarios, that was when I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm going back to this. I had to have a palate cleanser so that I can actually sleep. This is a series of 3. I don't know if I'm going to continue it. The one thing that I mean, it was definitely a beautiful adventure, but I just hate when I don't get answers, and there was zero explanation for how any of this was possible or how anything was supposed to pull together. And I was going to continue on into the series until I realized that the next book, and I think the third, are also from completely different POVs. And like, no, I need to know what happens to my bestie here. Like, what the heck? So we'll see what happens. I think I gave this a 4 stars as well. We're not done with this bad boy yet, so catch this in September hopefully. But all in all, August was a really fun reading month. I pushed myself outside of my usual comfort zone of romance and fantasy, and I read some classic lit and horror. We completed some fantasy, we had some classic lit, we had some horror. I feel like it was like a good, interesting month. I read literally 4 books again this month. Who am I? I've never read this much in my life. I almost read 5 since we're almost done with this. So hopefully I continue at this pace for the rest of the year. I completed my reading goal for the year. When I finished my Perfume book, I had completed my goal of reading 24 books this year. You guys, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. And Mason was asking me, he's like, doesn't your brain get frazzled? Like, do you forget the stories of all your books? And if it's a good enough plot, of course I'm gonna freaking remember it. Could I tell you about Zodiac Academy right now? No. Have I been thinking about it though? Kinda. But I feel like I wouldn't go back to Zodiac unless I was like extremely bored. But since I'm in Throne of Glass, hopefully I'll be properly entertained throughout the rest of the year. All right. Thank you if you made it this far into this video. Thank you for joining me on my reading adventures for the month. In terms of my possible TBR for next month, this needs to happen. I think I want to tackle the Mind series today, or whoa, next month, because I feel like that kind of continues on with like the spooky theme that I kind of cultivated this month. Another book that I'm thinking about giving a try is Big Swiss. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow has been on my TBR forever, and I feel like I just need to do it. And then, I don't know, I feel like I've heard a lot about Frida McFadden books, and I want to see what the hype's about. So I'm very open-minded. I don't really have a set course for August or September, oh my gosh. But you'll catch me next month with whatever I get up to. All right guys, love you. Bye.